I want to talk about the first canto of Book 3 of the Faerie Queene in a little more detail than I'll use for most of the other books. I want to talk about 5 things: allegory, structure, Britomart's character growth, the motif of eyesight, and the digression on Venus and Adonis. First, the allegory thing. Let's look closely at Malacasta's 6 henchmen, our 6 knights who we meet beating up on poor Red Cross, who's our hero from book 1, which we have not read. Battering him, trying to make him love their lady. I always enjoy the kind of bizarre logic where, like, okay, if you come by, first, there are 2 choices. Well, you either swear how much you love Our Lady, or we beat you up and make you swear how much you love Our Lady. And Britomart says, well, what if he beats you up? What if he wins? Like, then he gets Our Lady. A ridiculous kind of cuckoo cloudland logic, but also in some way reflecting the kind of obsessiveness of love in a way that views the beloved as like the one person. Who would not want Malacasta? And, you know, this is a poem where, like, there isn't even one fairest of them all. We have so many fairest ladies of the land all strolling around and being chased. It's hard to keep track of who's the babiest of the babes. All the knights are valiant and good looking too. Spencer doesn't do individualized description that much. There aren't complicated facial features the way there are in Chaucer. Okay, those 6 knights. Gardante, Parlante, Gardante, Parlante, Giocante, Basciante, Bacante, and Noctante. They are the knights of. let's make it fast. It's Gardante, Parlante, Giocante, Basciante, Bacante, and Noctante. They are the knights of looking, talking or chatting, playing and joking, kissing, drinking, and staying up late. Together, they represent a succession of activities that lead closer and closer to, in this case, illicit sex. Or, if you don't judge that, illicit sex. But in any case, they're the path to seduction. And it starts with Gardante, and that's important. Well, courtly love, even when it's approved, begins with the eyes, begins with looking. So does Neoplatonic love. So that's where love starts. These are 6 characters on the path to love, or, because they're bad guys, on the path to sex. A lot of Spencer's characters represent things in this way. The simpler they are, the easier the allegorical pattern is to see. The more complicated the character is, the less fully allegorical they become, and the harder it is to ascribe or interpret the proper allegorical meaning of every incident. So Britomart, on some level, represents chastity, and Guyon, the knight from book 2, who we meet coming in, is the knight of temperance or moderation, of self-control. But what does it mean that chastity knocks self-control off his horse onto his ass? What does that mean symbolically? It's complicated, or they aren't being allegorical at that moment. Simple characters often are allegorical, and Spencer will go to that allegorical well a lot, where characters are symbolic and kind of in-your-face ways that make them not even quite characters. Britomart represents chastity, but she's much more of an individualized character than that. I said I was going to do her third. I'm going to do her second. We are also in Canto 1. We're at the beginning of her quest. We've just met this character, and this character does develop over time. She is not static. I would point out, especially in Canto 1 and in Canto 2, and for a while now, ways in which Britomart is imperfect. She is defended in that armor. She is not totally honest. She has not told Malacasta that she's a woman. She won't take off her armor at dinner, which is rude, but also shows a certain fearfulness on her part. And throughout the book, we're going to find various knights and husbands and ladies who are excessively fearful, whose chastity is the chastity of fearfulness, Britomart, valiant and heroic, shouldn't be that fearful chastity, but she still is a little bit, just a little bit. And if you say, well, maybe she shouldn't trust Malicasta and shouldn't take off her armor, though that confusion of like Malicasta slipping into bed with her arguably only happens because Britomart has held up her gender imposter and literally kept her armor on. But she doesn't tell Red Cross either. And Red Cross is very much a good guy. He's the opening good guy of this entire epic poem. He doesn't know. She doesn't know who, she doesn't trust him. She doesn't seem to trust anybody, or she doesn't know who to trust. She also has the problem, she has the difficulty, she buys initially Malacasta's complaints of love. Malicasta comes pitching game at her, and is the way Malicasta spits game is the classic courtly love game, which is, oh my God, it's agony, it's misery, I'm on fire, I'm burning, I'm sick, I'm ill. And Britomart's first one says, oh yeah, I get you, I know, because that happens to me. On the one level, that's a nice moment of bonding, one female character to female character, in a poem where women don't get together that often. We've got a female hero, but this is not really a feminist work. But there's also the fact that Britomart can't tell fake love from true love. She can't tell Malacasta's fake suffering, which isn't real, which is just about to attempt to get a way to get a stranger into bed, from her own, Britomart's own genuine suffering. She can't tell yet because she doesn't understand love or chastity enough yet. Instead of thinking about the plot of who's chasing who's getting who out of what tower, one way to read Book 3 is to watch Britomart's development into a better and more reliable champion of the virtue she set out to champion, the Knight of Chastity, a proper Christian monogamous love. Third, I want to talk about structure. Plot, you all know to look at plot, but plot is a fairly superficial thing, and Spencer is either not interested in plot because we'll just stop and describe things forever for like 9 stanzas, and kind of too interested in plot. The plot's too complicated. The plot doesn't even fit in this book. Plot spills over. Spoilers, or since you're watching this video, I presume you've already read the whole of Book 3. She is not going to find the boy in Book 3. She's not. Britomart will not find Artegal. Artegal will show up briefly in Book 4, which you have for extra reading after the summer course. If you feel like it, if you really love this poem, you got Book 4 right there. And then Artegal is going to be the hero of Book 5, running amok. He's the Knight of Justice. He's a very bad and dangerous man. By bad, I mean he is a ferocious warrior. We're not getting the girl. The girl's not getting the boy. Not in this book. Not till much later in this massively long poem. Instead, Canto 12 is going to be Britomart kind of achieving a side quest. She's going to be busting somebody else out of a different castle. Instead of thinking about plot, think about structure. Structure, what is structure? It's important. It's the 300 level and you haven't heard, here it comes. Structure is the repetition of narrative elements that helps hold a work together and makes it feel coherent. It's often not obvious, it's often a little subtle, but it happens. This kind of repetition makes us feel there's a shape more maybe than the storyline itself. The structure holds us together better than the plot does because the plot goes in all kinds of directions. And if you think you're focused, by the time we get to Canto 4, we're going to go, the plot's going to go everywhere. We're going to be following like however many different heroes, heroines, damsels in distress, etc. Book 1 begins with Britomart in a castle talking to a woman who at least purports to be suffering for love and who doesn't know Britomart is a woman. Canto 12 will feature Britomart in a strange castle, another strange castle, dealing with another woman who is less arguably suffering for love and who doesn't know Britomart's a woman. We hold the 12 cantos together partly by that kind of repetition beginning and we find ourselves back in a similar but changed version of where we started. And Britomart herself has changed by that point. We can measure Britomart's growth by how she behaves in Malacasta's castle and how she behaves in the castle of Bouzerain, but also simply the fact of that repetition. Let's go to another castle. Let's deal with another lady. Let's bust out your sword, Britomart, and do some action. That happens at the beginning and the end and is an important structural element. Okay, something else to look for are motifs. What is a motif? It is a pattern of metaphors, figures of speech, or kinds of metaphors and ideas, not abstract, but about some figurative language that keeps coming back, that the poet continually returns to doing variations on. Not the same thing every time. It's repetition with variation. A crucial thing to wash through Canto through the Faerie Queene is the eyesight motif. Looking. Our boy Gardante, for example. But also Malacasta with her rolling eye. She's kind of looking around. She's doing a lot of sexy out of the corner of her eye. She's seductive. She won't look straight at you, but the eyes are also trying to pull attention. Malacasta's name is about her eyes, just like Gardante's. Now, this is important because the models of romantic and erotic love we're using in this poem all begin with first sight, but so does bad love. This is a poem, not just book 3, but the whole poem, that is dedicated to two opposed ideas. One idea is that virtue is shining and visible and immediately transparent. You meet one of the heroes, you can look right at him or her, and you know that's a good guy. You don't know Britomart's a woman, but you know she's a hero. Definitely a hero. You can see it. It's right there. That there's a legibility that sight gives us that you can tell the character from the face. On the other hand, this poem is also dedicated to the idea that seeing is extremely deceptive. The bad guys also all look like good guys. They're always disguising themselves. Malacasta is pretty low end, and that like Britomart can see through her a little. The villains create disguises. Like, is that Florimel or is that a fake Florimel? I can't tell. I can't tell anything by looking at it. Sight is in the Faerie Queene simultaneously the most important of senses and the least trustworthy. Most important, least trustworthy. Believe your eyes, but don't. Gardante is important. Malacasta is important. I will point to Gardante. When Malacasta comes in, Malacasta actually we bust through feeling, not seeing. I want to do a couple descriptions here. Here's some stanza 60. Here is Malacasta. Actually, no, from stanza 59, here's Malacasta creeping up on Britomart, busting her bedchamber. Now when as all the world in silence deepest shrouded was, and every mortal wight was drowned in the depth of deadly sleep, fair Malacasta, whose engrieved sprite could find no rest in such perplexed plight, lightly arose out of her weary bed, and under the black veil of guilty night, her with a scarlet mantle covered, and that was with gold and ermines fair enveloped. Let me stop there. Close reading is part of what we're doing. Let me close read a little bit this. We have the world is in deep silence. It is deadly sleep. Sleep that is like death. You could use a lot of different metaphors. Spenser can find any two-syllable stressed on the first syllable adjective he wants for sleep. There are hundreds of them. He chose deadly. Sleep that is like death, or sleep that is mortal, sleep that is dangerous. Her weary bed, notice her weary bed, the bed, she's not weary, the bed is weary. She's tired of her bed, she's weary of it, like the bed's not where she is. And under the black veil of guilty night, suddenly night's a problem, because it's black, because it's dark. Her with a scarlet mantle cover that was gold and ermine's fair enveloped. Okay, and she puts on her red cloak with fur and gold, and this is bad. In the codes of the Faerie Queene, that's too fancy, that's too gaudy, it looks bad, it also looks, it's coded as Catholic, and therefore in Spenser's world, bad. because the Catholic Church has ceremonial clothing for the priests, the bishops, the Pope, etc., that are very elaborate. Protestantism wants nothing to do with that. Okay. Keep moving, Malicasta. Then panting soft and trembling every joint, her fearful feet towards the bower she moved, where she for secret purpose did appoint to lodge the warlike maid, unwisely loved, and to her bed approaching, first she proved whether she slept or waked, with her soft hand. She softly felt if any member moved, and lent her weary ear to understand if any puff of breath or sign of sense she found. Melicasta's not going to go by the eyes. It's dead dark. She's going to listen for Britomart's breath, and she's reaching to see if she's feeling to see if any member moved, and that's a penis joke. Obviously, the double meaning is she's reaching for the penis because she thinks Britomart's a gentleman, not a lady, and is looking for a member that isn't there, that won't be stirring anytime. I would point out that though Malicasta is a BS artist who pretends to be in love and is sexually voracious in a way that's not honest or truthful, she's a misogynist caricature. She's a man-hater's idea of an oversexed woman. She's unwisely loving. She's actually described here as genuinely feeling some pain, genuinely feeling desire, that it hurts her. She's got to get this boy, she thinks, right now. And awakes the maid. Let's see, on 63, 64, yeah. Actually, 63. And those 6 knights that ladies champions, and eke the Red Cross knight that ran to the stound, half armed and half unarmed with them at once, where when confusedly they came, they found their lady lying on the senseless ground. On the other side, they saw the warlike maid, all in her snow-white smock with locks unbound, threatening the point of her avenging blade, so that with so troublous terror, they were all dismayed. Everybody's afraid. Actually, at this moment, Britomart is scarier in her nightgown than she was in armor. She's got that sword, but you see her snow white. She's got her snow white smock that she sleeps in. She's got her hair everywhere. We don't facial details in what Spencer does. It's a beautiful face. And we'll also see later, we'll see Britomart blush. But it's a general blush. We don't know what her nose looks like. We don't know what the bone structure is like. We get a general sense of her. They get ready. They're ready to roll up on Britomart, but like Red Cross is their backing. And also, didn't Britomart beat them all up earlier today? Yes, they're afraid of her. 65, which is very important. But one of those 6 knights, Gardante hight, drew out a deadly bow and arrow keen, which forth he sent with felonious despite, with fell intent against the virgin sheen. The mortal steel stayed not till it was seen to gore her side, yet was the wound not deep, but lightly raised her soft silken skin, that drops of purple blood thereout did weep, which did her lily smock with stains of vermeil steep. Okay, a few things there. It's mortal steel. The arrowhead is steel, and it's mortal steel, meaning deadly steel. It doesn't get her. It only goes a little bit, but it's still called mortal steel. Something is deadly there. It's a bow and arrow. Here, on a macro level, Gardante is playing Cupid. He is literally playing Cupid, and he is doing what Cupid does, using a bow and arrow to hit you. And when does Cupid do that? Through sight, through vision. Gorda said the wound was not deep, but it lightly raised her soft silken skin. And then we get the detail of the purple blood on that white shift. That white nightgown that made her a kind of avenging angel with her weapon is now stained. It is stained, and that's a metaphor, and it's meant, this is allegorical as all get out. Now, a little bit of red, purple, like Malicasta's nightgown, has gotten onto that pure white of Britomart's shift. Britomart is not entirely pure. She is vulnerable. Also, I would point out that what Gardante has done here mimics what happens to Britomart in the next 2 cantos when she looks in the magic mirror. Canto 2, she looks in the magic mirror and falls in love, and it's the same thing. It's a little nick, doesn't notice at the time, but it's a wound and it's gonna matter. You got in there and something big is gonna happen. Okay, chapter 5, digression. You've noticed there's a lot of Roman and Greek mythology here. When we get to Malacast's chamber, there's a lot about Venus and Adonis, who will come up again. By the way, did I mention structure? In the middle of this book, there's going to be a big visit to the garden of Adonis. Who is Adonis? He is Venus, the love goddess's younger bohunk boy toy. He's a mortal who goes off hunting a boar, a wild pig with huge tusks, who stabs him to death and kills him. And if you want to imagine that is looking like the blood on a Britomart shift, go right ahead. Go back to stanza 34. The walls were round about apparelled with costly clothes of Arras and of Tours. These are these are kind of centers of the cloth trade in France. They already got a shout out in the Canterbury Tales, in which with cunning hand was portrayed the love of Venus and her paramour, the fair Adonis turned to a flower, a work of rare device and wondrous wit. First did it show the bitter, baleful stour, with which her assayed with many a fervent fit, when first her tender heart was with his beauty smit. The Venus and Adonis story. It ends up he dies, and to keep him from dying, she turns him into a flower. That's how mythology goes, baby. But first, she is miserable. The goddess of love herself falls in love with this young, not terribly mature boy. Then, with what sleights and sweet allurement she enticed the boy, as well that art she knew, and wooed him her paramour to be, now making garlands of each flower that grew, to crown his golden locks with honour due, now leading him into a secret shade, from his beau pairs, and from bright heaven's view, where him to sleep she gently would persuade, or bathe him in a fountain by some covert glade. And whilst he slept, she over him would spread her mantle, colored like the starry skies, and her soft arm lay underneath his head, and with ambrosial kisses bathe his eyes. And whilst he bathed with her two crafty spies, she secretly would search each dainty limb, and throw into the well sweet rosemaries, and fragrant violets, and pounces trim, pansies, and ever with sweet nectar she did sprinkle him. Even Venus is part of the eyesight motif, her secret spy. She's looking craftily to check Adonis's body out. So did she steal his heedless heart away, enjoyed his love in secret unespied, but for she saw him bent to cruel play, to hunt the savage beast in forest wild, dreadful of danger that mote him betide, she oft advised him refrain from chase of greater beasts, whose brutish pride mote breed him scathe unawares, but all in vain. For who can shun the chance that destiny doth ordain? Oh, heavy metaphor. Venus is here erotic, but also dangerous. She's a suffering lover, but she's also a seductress. She crowns Adonis's golden looks with honor due, leads him into a secret shade. Oh, that's bad. Away from bright heaven's view. That's nice. Oh, nice shade on a hot summer day under the clouds. But away from bright heaven's view, that's bad, where heaven can't see you. Were him to sleep, she gently would persuade, and bathe him in a fountain by covert glade, a secret glade. I enjoy her mantle colored like the starry skies. And we have this long description of like them napping together. What does this have to do with Britomart's quest? On a plot level, nothing. Not a damn thing. We're going to stop for digressions like this all the time. On a level of theme and character, everything. She is the knight of appropriate chaste love. And this is a description of one kind of love, which is tragic and erotic and seductive and outside marriage. This is actually what she has to deal with. Britomart should know about Malacasta. She should not have to figure out at dinner. She should know by seeing, from looking at these kind of tapestries, these expensive luxury tapestries on the wall that tell this story, what kind of house this is. It's right out there. Looks are deceiving, but they also tell you the truth in Spencer. Look at all this beautiful art that's sexy, but sexy in a bad way. On the other hand, even when Spencer condemns things, he enjoys the sensuality. That description of the mantle colored like the starry skies. Like, that's a beautiful thing. Venus is beautiful. Britomart's beautiful. Venus is beautiful, but also someone who will lead you off into seduction in a kind of morally uncomfortable way, but also someone who suffers from love. What to make of all these things? Britomart has 12 cantos to figure it out.